You guys need to see this because this is the latest epic failure for woke Disney. Look at this. This is by Bounding Into Comics. Upcoming Pixar film Elemental expected to have the worst opening in company history. Elemental is the latest Pixar movie by woke Disney, and it cost them $200 million to make. And as of today, this epic failure by Disney has only made a measly $2 million in the box office. Again, this is a movie that cost Disney $200 million to make. This movie is going to be a huge disaster for Disney. This movie is going to lose woke Disney hundreds of millions of dollars. This on top of Disney having one of the worst years in 2022 with losing $123 billion. Again, woke Disney lost $123 billion in market value in 2022.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Once again, we got to talk about a Disney movie flopping, probably because it's too woke, right? And Disney just doesn't seem to learn their lesson, okay? Just when you thought that Disney couldn't be woke enough, they become even more woke. And that has resulted in flop after flop after flop for this once great company, right? That was at one point good at actually making movies. Now it just seems like, again, everything they put out, you know, that's woke turns to ish, right? That's just the rule of thumb. In fact, I wish it was possible to short Disney movies, right? Like, I wish it was possible to actually bet against woke Disney movies, okay? Because if I'm a betting man, I'm going to bet that any movie that Disney put out that's marketed as woke, okay, or that has overt woke themes in it, is probably going to be a disaster. It's probably not going to make money, right? It's probably the surest bet you can make in 2023, okay? And we're going to talk about Disney's latest flop, the Elemental movie that just came out that featured their first openly non-binary character and also played off of systemic racism themes and a whole bunch of other woke themes and ideology. How that is an epic disaster, even more so than the film we're about to talk about right now. Before we get into that, The Little Mermaid, right? Which this headline implies that The Little Mermaid is somehow, some way doing well at the box office, even though it's not. It's actually a disaster. And like I told you guys, I want to keep up with how these movies perform financially because I want to see if wokeness actually makes money, right? Do these companies actually make money off of wokeness, okay? And this is why I'm doing this series here. But let's catch up on The Little Mermaid a little bit because, again, this is a disaster. I'm going to tell you guys why. As it nears the end of its theatrical run, Disney's The Little Mermaid is indicating that it might have the energy for one last lap. The movie has struggled commercially after debuting a little over 3 weeks ago, but after braving some choppy waters initially, it appears to have steadied itself. This weekend, The Little Mermaid swam past 3 new milestones at the box office: the 250 million mark domestically, the 200 million mark in international territories, and the 450 million mark worldwide. Yeah, so this is a disaster, right? Because this is like the third or fourth week that this movie has been out. It's basically done, and Disney spent $200 million just to make the movie, right? So in order for them to actually make money off a movie of this magnitude, they're probably going to need to pull in at least $500 million, right? More realistically, we're talking 600, 700, 800 million. The Little Mermaid might hit 500 million, right? It might. So it seems like it's almost guaranteed that Disney is either going to lose money, not profit on this film, or they're going to break even. Which, again, for a movie that was marketed as woke, right? You have a race-swapped main character. That is an absolute disaster, okay? It tells you everything you need to know, okay? And you know it's really a disaster because you had the mainstream liberal media come out and to try to make excuses for the disaster, especially abroad, by crying racism against China and Korea because Asians, those people, they actually don't want to see this movie because they don't like race swapping.
The Little Mermaid is dramatically underperforming in 2 significant markets, especially China, the world's second largest box office, and South Korea, amid racist commentary and critiques that are out there. The Black actress Halle Bailey, she has been widely commended and praised for her performance as the main character Ariel, but apparently not enough to win over certain would-be viewers in China and South Korea who just can't get over over the fact that she was cast by Disney in this role. Now, the film has found success in many countries around the world. We'll walk through some data points for you. In fact, according to ComScore, the film has made $327 million globally. But China, again, the world's second largest box office, has contributed a very small amount. According to NData, this is the Chinese box office tracker, in mainland China, the film made only $2.7 million in its first 5 days. And you compare that to the Spider-Man movie, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, that brought in nearly $20 million in its first 5 days. Some in mainland China have been sharing their objections online. You know, one netizen on a platform called Maoyan, which is a box office movie platform, said, quote, that the fairy tale I grew up with has changed beyond recognition, unquote. And Chinese state media has been egging on such responses. In fact, let's bring it up for you. In an op-ed, it was published before the film's debut in China. The Global Times said this, quote, the controversy surrounding Disney's forced inclusion of minorities in classic films is not about racism, but its lazy and irresponsible storytelling strategy, unquote. Disney declined to comment to CNN on this story, but we've also seen similar reaction online in South Korea, with one user saying that the movie had, quote, been ruined, adding the hashtag #NotMyAriel. According to the Korean Film Council in South Korea, The Little Mermaid attracted, and here are more numbers for you, some 472,000 viewers in its first week. Compare that to the near 643,000 fans who showed up for the latest Fast and Furious movie over the same period. John.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that, right? CNN in full-blown meltdown over racism for China and Korea, right? Which is basically going to keep The Little Mermaid from reaching $1 billion, okay? I mean, it's going to not even be half as successful as Aladdin because, again, Disney decided to be woke. And people were like, yo, we're not down with the race swapping, okay? We want to see the original characters for how they look. And again, the fans said we don't want to see it, right? So instead of listening to the fans, the corporate-owned news media say, well, the fans are racist, right? The fans are racist. So again, you already know what's about to happen with this movie right here, Elemental, which featured Disney's first non-binary character. They're going to blame this flop on transphobia, right? Instead of saying, hey, you know what, maybe parents don't want to take their kids to see a movie with a non-binary character. So, without further ado, let's read about the epic disaster that this was, because this is even worse. This is even worse than The Little Mermaid. Let's read about this. Pixar's newest film, Elemental, which features Disney's first non-binary character, flopped in its opening weekend at the box office. The film grossed a mere $29.5 million, making it the worst start for a Pixar film since Toy Story in 1995. Wow. So only $29.5 million. Wow. Wait till you guys see how much it costs to make this. Elemental is an animated film that details the adventure of how opposites attract, right? You already know where this is going. Critics have noted it, quote, addresses racism and xenophobia with spectacular CGI animation. Okay, so it addresses racism and xenophobia, right? So again, you have woke themes showing up here. Okay, it's just funny how this works. The film's protagonist, Ember Lemon, a fire element voiced by Leah Lewis, and Wade Ripple, a water element voiced by Manmudu Ati, explore efforts to save Ember's family store. Wade's younger sibling, Lake, who is voiced by Ava Hauser, is the film's non-binary character. Although they aren't a major protagonist in the story, their presence is a major win for non-binary representation, LGBTQ advocate site Pink News said of Lake's gender identity. Rotten Tomatoes top critics gave Elemental a 64% rating. Quote, depending on where it falls, this could be the lowest earning opening weekend Pixar has had since Toy Story's $29 million take in 1995. Another film review stated, even then, Toy Story's box office take has not been adjusted for inflation, making Elemental's box office figures even more disappointing. Elemental reportedly cost $200 million to make and another $100 million to market. Yeah, so $300 million out the gate. $300 million out the gate, and they only made 20-some million the first weekend. Yeah, that's bad, right? they're never going to make the money back. They're going to lose hundreds of millions. They might lose $200 million, right? They might lose $200 million on this woke Pixar film, which, by the way, Pixar used to be gold, right? I mean, a Pixar movie that come out, you know, the original stuff like The Incredibles, Monsters, Inc., you know, stuff like that, you used to be able to count on that being basically a slam dunk, right? But now, shoot, again, Pixar. I mean, it seems like what they're doing is not working, right? The formula just isn't working anymore, and it's probably because, again, they're going woke, right? I'm not sure what parents want to take their kids to see a movie that has themes about xenophobia and racism. I think that that's something that parents would probably want to talk to their kids about themselves instead of having kids learn about it via a movie. But again, for some reason, these woke companies don't get that. They believe that they should be the ones that are parenting the kids, that they should be the ones teaching the kids, and this is why they're doing it. And it's really messed up because, again, Disney actually really does believe that. They know that a majority of their audience when it comes to their cartoons, their television series, their movies, is children, right? And the fact is that they know that they have a large influence on how children think, right? So they're trying to indoctrinate children, and parents are saying no. It's almost as if Disney forgot that parents ultimately control whether or not kids can go to the movies to see these movies, right? And again, if you're out here putting out movies with non-binary characters, talking about racism and xenophobia, parents are going to reject it, right? People are just not going to want to take their kids to see movies about that stuff because that's not what kids' movies should be about. You should let kids be kids, let children be children, right? You don't need to talk about these things to make a great kids movie, right? I mean, we have kids movies of the past that were amazing, okay, that were not focused on this stuff, okay? They were just focused on telling a good story that children would enjoy. Again, an art that Disney seems to have lost, okay? They don't seem to be able to do that anymore. But hey, who knows? Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.